All right, can everybody hear me? Hello. So I take it if you're here, you are interested in connecting devices, and every day that's getting added to our internet. So just to explain a little bit about, really? It just jumped right straight. 1 second. It's going to do it again. Okay, so my name is Carlo Maldonado. I work for Nimbus 9. We are a startup in Colorado Springs. We do lighting automation control, all wirelessly through the cloud. We also, we're a platform, so we're not just doing lighting. We started with lighting because that's the biggest market for this sort of thing right now, especially in the industrial and commercial market. So we've been doing this for about 2 years, and as we go along, we're basically discovering a lot of, I'm the lead UI designer, so discovering a lot of challenges that I would have not normally thought of, and that's why I thought this would be an interesting talk. Thank you all for coming, by the way. I appreciate it. So there are some things that come up on top of standard UI challenges and designs and things that you're looking out for your users when you add physical devices to things, to the internet. So for those that don't understand what IoT is, it's kind of a buzzword. It's really just a concept. It's just going to keep doing that. It keeps jumping to the next slide. I don't know why. But we'll talk around it. So that is not going to work. 1 second. Okay. All right. So the Internet of Things is a conceptual framework, not really a specific device or technology. It's just the idea of embedding connectivity and sharing data with multiple devices and value that can bring. And it can bring value. It can also bring a lot of problems, confusion, and we'll get into that. So basically, you're just taking devices that have in the past been dumb, connecting them to some sort of network, up to a cloud service somewhere, and then out to your devices through the same internet. Remote sensing isn't new. I came from a background before I got into design. I was a satellite operator for the Air Force. And so my first, this was like fresh out of high school, like 18. And anyway, so my first understanding of remote sensing was, for me, satellites. So, 17,000 nautical miles in the air, sending down data. You've got to be able to understand voltages, temperatures, and try to figure out through digital data, not really anything analog, just trying to understand what that voltage means. And, you're staring at a 2-volt increase should be sending off alarms to people, but it's literally just 4 characters, and you're like, okay. So there's a lot of training that goes involved with that. Well, a lot of training that goes on to that before you're actually able to, decipher what's going on, troubleshoot, plan ahead, move on. As far as IoT goes, it's also not new. People wanting to connect things. Some people might remember the X10 powerhouse. It didn't really make it to scale. I think a lot of those reasons are because of the things that we're going to be talking about the challenges that come. It's cool. Certainly a lot of people can figure things out and piece things together, but how do you do it on a level that the mass market will want it and use it? So currently, 19.7 billion devices if you count our cell phones, computers. And so right now, that's the consumer market is probably the largest percentage of that. That's going to change as we find more ways to connect these things and make them make sense and actually add value to your life instead of just adding more apps and adding more things that you have to remember, more things you have to charge, more, I mean, it's going to become huge. And that's why I think it's important for UI designers, developers, back end. I mean, everybody's going to have these sort of things in their minds and thinking about what to do with them, because we're all going to have a lot more of them. By 2025, 95.5 billion devices, 5 times more than today. So why is this starting to take off? Well, because the network is faster, more reliable, right? That being the network that connects to your internet and also the internet. Embedded connectivity is smaller and can fit into more things. Also, the cost for the chips and the technology is down and the functionality is better. So what does that actually end up causing? Well, we're interrupting direct manipulation. For those that are into heavy UX and UI, direct manipulation is a software concept. It's an interaction style that involves continuous representation of objects of interest and rapid reversible incremental actions and feedback. So this was introduced to start helping get away from command line sort of interfaces and make it more usable to the world. We're sort of interrupting that when we add devices that have been typically dumb because we're adding a layer in front of them. The internet. So internet technology, it adds a layer of complexity in front of dumb devices. Where before you just had a light switch, on the side, you turn it on, turn it off. It's pretty quick to figure out if the light bulb is out, if it's an electrical problem, if it's really, if it's a lot more than just that, you would just switch out the bulb. The bulb still doesn't work. Oh, okay, so I have some sort of wiring problem. Well, now add to it your phone's browser, the internet, some sort of module that connects you to that, gateway, passport, whatever you want to call it, and then the device itself. And are we really ready for our users to understand that the internet, right? We're all used to 404 pages. We're all used to, oh, my connection's not working, refresh, clear my cache, whatever, right? So what is that going to look like when it's your lights? What is that going to look like when it's your thermostat? What is it going to look like when you're scripting something and it doesn't fire? For all of us, most of us in here, that's going to make sense at some point. Okay, well, we're follow the line down. What's not connected? What's not plugged in? Whatever, right? What failed? But for most users, you're adding a whole level of system model that they just do not understand. Added complexity means the user needs to either understand the new system model or be exposed to it via status and errors. Could it be my browser? Right? We have to all design for around Android, iOS, Windows. All those things are a possibility. Is the AWS server down? Did it restart? Did Docker fail restarting it? Internet connectivity problems. Is my module broken? The chip died? Those sort of things come up. So most design for connected devices stops at the obvious but limiting constructs. This is more of a design problem, right? So here we have something that looks like a popular thermostat that you might know of, and so this isn't a very complex design to show you there on the right, but it does point out that is a nice one-hit kind of wonder app, right? You do one thing with it. What if you have 3 or 4 of those? How easy is it to get back and forth? How am I going to get status? So, I just threw it in a cheesy little widget. Obviously, I would do a lot more thinking of it than just, throw it in that. But the point being that, you can take software concepts, right, that we've all used for web design, for applications, and start using those to their full potential with a lot of these. A lot of the product designers for these are just that, product designers, and so they're not really savvy on how to take a lot of complex information and sort of make it fit into the size of a phone. And so it ends up bringing, a lot of problems. Do you want to, here's some examples. Typical things we've all seen on a wall somewhere in some sort of tablet-looking thing, right? Looks complex, looks like I don't really want to touch it. Looks like they tried to do some skeuomorphic. I'll stay away from design preference, but but I mean it does. It looks, skeuomorphic. Oh, they're trying to put gradients to make it look like it's really a button. Things like this. Very popular control platforms. Doesn't look like the internet we use. Right? Some better design examples a little bit. On the left there's LifeX. But again, it's made to look like some sort of physical dial on the wall. You know, they're trying to, I understand why people do it. They're trying to, you know, make some sort of correlation to the physical device that they're controlling and the app that they're using. But it doesn't really use the power of what we can use with all the web technologies that are out there. Typical sliders, dimmers, you know. And another problem that comes up is, you know, just because you can connect it doesn't mean you should, right? That's more of a, you know, a business concept than it is a UI concept. But sometimes you might be asked to make the interface for the connected toaster. Why? Because of that, there's been slow adoption in these fields, you know, because everybody's trying to get it connected. Again, the chip's smaller, it costs less, so why not? It'd be fun. You know, and it is, you know, funny and cool, but also not very scalable, not very mass market, not very finished. Okay. All right, so IoT complicates standard usability guidelines. Right? If we've seen all these, there's standard software guidelines for UX. Minimize memory load, speak the user's language, simple and natural dialogue, make clear exits, support recall, shortcuts, feedback. So what of these does IoT complicate the most? Right, so when we're talking about memory load, typically that'd be more, you know, how many pages in or you know, am I into an app and how do I get back? But now you're also, did I turn that light on? Did I set that scene? Is it going to fire? When's it going to fire? You know, especially when you're dealing with, you know, buildings like this. If somebody had set a scene by accident to turn this off during the talk, everybody's going to be looking around. What if there's not a wall switch anymore in the future? Right? So you have to support memory load, constructive error messages. This scene was set. This scene didn't fire. Feedback. Bless you. Thrive for consistency. More of those issues that I was, you know, pointing out when you have multiple things that you need to show. You know, how do you, a lot of those other control platforms, you know, they have like tabs and buttons and things, but every single interface looks different because, again, they're still trying to make it look like the product. Right? So it doesn't lend itself to being very consistent, especially when you're trying to explain a new system model to a user and you're trying to reinforce that. Every single time it looks like something else and they have to reorganize and sort of scan and figure out where things are again. So it's a challenge, you know, and then supporting recall, what did I do last? Same thing with memory load. You know, what was it that I left it? What state is it in? So when it comes to platforms and those sort of things, I think that the future is going to look more like, you know, many types of devices kind of being consolidated into one type of program. It doesn't mean it has to be one program, but, you know, programs that fall under, you know, one kind of concept. The reason being is that, you know, the same number that I was telling you about, the 19.7 billion that we have now versus the 95.5 billion that's coming, is right now we probably have about a 1 to 1 to 2 ratio for how many devices that we have, right? Our cell phones, our computers. But if that number is going to go to 95.5 billion and we purchase more and more things that are connected, that ratio is going to be more like 1 to 30. Multiple people in a household, that might be a lot more for that household. So, you know, things, you know, we have to be able to understand that just when we're designing something, it's not just to get that one thing connected. It's how is it going to play well with everything else? And that also translates to your designs. right? So do we just keep adding more apps to our phone? And how many of us really want to be in 20 apps a day just to control our lives, especially when something goes wrong, like the power outage? So I think it'll make a lot more sense, when those platforms can be unified through APIs and other ways to, just cleanly show them. I'm not, we haven't quite figured that out yet. Nobody really has, maybe the people in this room. How are we going to connect all of it and then make sense of it all at once? This is a little bit slightly better design. I mean, I wouldn't say design-wise, but it's at least, trying to show a dashboard of different types of things. Their app is a list of different types of data. Again, I'm not saying it's great design. I'm just pointing out that at least, this company is trying to start to think about it in, let's do the whole space. That is bad design, right? Because I can't really tell what it is. It's confusing. Looks like if I, select the night program, what does that do to all the other things that are in that space? I have my shades, but I don't know where they are. What if I select, does the front door have shades? Probably not. Why is that on the same screen? Short of getting me to that next, thing that I want to connect to or control, this doesn't really explain, that they're not connected. It's just one of those, I'm sure if you went to something that does have it, then it might light up. Maybe it goes from being grayed out to filled in, I don't know. Haven't actually played with it. They have the tabs on the bottom there, but again, it all looks the same. You have to look really hard at that text to know what it is you're going to. They're not using things like we're used to, like icons, to make it a little bit faster. Different colors. So the another issue is error handling with UX. We're no longer designing just for data and content. Depending on the device, confusing or misleading design choices could have serious consequences to the user. These are all physical things. What if it's a smoke alarm? What if it's a security system? One mistouch, you have unlocked the whole house for anybody to walk in. Same thing with a business. What could possibly go wrong? If anybody knows the Nest story, when they first launched, they had a feature called Wave, and that is, you're cooking something, it starts to burn, you say, okay, never mind, it was just a mistake, right? But when there's a fire, people tend to wave their hands and kind of freak out. So you could inadvertently turn it off, and the system decides for you to cancel that alarm. It was a real thing. They recalled like 200,000 units. All right, so how do we do this? I think create scalable constructs that make unifying objects easier to understand. The users are going to need to understand a system model or they're not going to want your product. And so if the more time you spend simplifying that, making it easier to understand, whether it just be the pixels you're pushing or whether it actually just be concepts, it all needs to make sense. Use good feedback. Reinforce and conceptualize. Help them understand the model through the design itself, not just through the manual that they get. They may not pick it up. That was out of order, but real world test your apps and devices to identify system concept models, like Nest didn't do. And then use onboarding, tutorials, supportive design to help users understand your system and how it can break down. So I got that through that really fast, which gives us a lot of time for Q&A. Does anybody have any questions?